to the Good Crack Miniatures channel. G here, your miniature painter un extraordinaire. And today we're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to talk about miniatures I have painted. I know, it's a bit of a change. Most of what this channel is about is the things I haven't painted. That's kind of the big theme. The 3,000 something miniatures that I'm needing to try to get through in this year. But I have painted a few over my 6 years of miniature painting, and Kaylee asked in the comments about what some of my favorites were, what I liked the most of my painted collection, and so I'm answering you today with my top 5. Now these will be in no particular order, but each of them are paints that I am particularly proud of the way I went about. They kind of span all of the years I've been miniature painting, so different experience levels, different skill levels, but I think it really encapsulates my sort of style and taste. And I think we'll get started with this guy, the lovely zombie dragon from Reaper Miniatures. Was painted with Reaper MSP paints as well as some Turbo Dork. Hard to see, but there's a little bit of that color change aesthetic on the carving there. There are a lot of things I love about this mini. For one, it's just an excellent sculpt, honestly. When we're talking about zombies and those sorts of things, particularly a Draco Lich like this, I would say that this sculpt has probably the optimum boniness to fleshiness ratio, and an optimum ratio of kind of intact flesh and scales to sort of ripped and torn flesh. I'm sorry if this is not kind of your gig. We'll move on. This is the only one that's like this, I promise. It's something that's near and dear to my heart, kind of. I love weird stuff. Yeah. But another reason I probably love this guy so much is that it is attached to a great Dungeons & Dragons memory, and that is when I was able to get my crew, who played mostly online at the time, because one of our members lived in New York, together for a, I think about 12-hour dungeon dive in one place, in person. It was fantastic, and I decided what better to do to the party when you have everyone in the room and you can all really interact via in-person contact instead of just a screen than set your party up against a massive Draco Lich and a whole bunch of other skeletons. So this is what they faced. I was able to kind of know this was happening in advance, so I took my time on painting this, and I'm really proud of the way it turned out. The different variations of blue between the scale flesh and kind of the ripped flesh is great. Love the interior kind of dark red fleshy color, as well as the bones. I think I did really well with the bones on this guy. I was just starting to get a handle on kind of shading and highlighting, and it really stood out on him, as well as the carving. Now, I will say, and it's probably my fault, I probably didn't do a great job, the color shift paints, actually, in the right light, they're holding up pretty well, so maybe I wouldn't redo those, but it does kind of take the right light. Again, another magnificent part of this sculpt is these dragon carvings just right here around the pillar there. Really well done, all things considered in this sculpt. It's just incredibly well put together and a very, I would say, impactful miniature to put on your tabletop. So that's our lovely Draco Lich from Reaper. Now, let's see. Weirdly enough, 4 out of 5 of these are Reaper miniatures. We're going to shift to a slightly different one, slightly smaller. This is the lovely Stitch Thimbletoe. Now, this was actually one of the first miniatures I ever got. I received him as an extra when I made my first order at Reaper, which I think was zombies and skeletons and goblins, as you do in your first miniature order for a DM. And I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do with him. And then I just decided to paint him up. And I actually, for being one of the first miniatures I painted, I did quite a few things incredibly intuitively well. He's got a nice wash that I don't know if you'll be able to see. Oh, you can kind of see. I'll show you more on the close-ups, maybe. of nice dirty wash on this cape. Obviously, kind of went with a particular franchise's coloring for the cape. The other thing I think I did well, the feet, well, his toes could use a little touch up because there's a little black on there, but I got some nice coloring on the fur on the feet. I feel like I could go back and delineate some of that clothing a little more. It's all black, which for a rogue, which he is, makes sense. But I think we could do a few little accenting there. But that face, I did a great job on this face. It just is. I managed somehow to capture the highlights and the lowlights, and miraculously did some pretty darn good eyes, if I say so myself. Um, and this was before I discovered micron pens, which, for those of you who may be unfamiliar with miniature painting, eyes are the bane of our existence, particularly small humanoid eyes like these. And so, what a lot of people do, what I do a lot of the time now, is we have these small little black ink pens, micron pens, that we will use to just dot instead of using the paint, because it is an incredibly difficult skill set to get those nice little doots with just the end of a paintbrush. This is probably the best I've ever done, weirdly enough, being one of the first ones I ever painted. But I am getting better. I think I've gotten much better brush control, which is hard to do when your hands shake from time to time. Next, let's go with someone you've seen a decent amount of, featured in our intro. There we go, our lovely brass dragon, whose name I will put up on the screen right now because I can't exactly remember it off the top of my head. I always want to call this one Narthlex, and it is not. No, it's not. Unless I'm wrong, and it is, and I'm right for once. But usually I try and call him by the very much wrong name. Another great sculpt from Reaper Miniatures, painted again with Reaper MSP paints. All three of these have been thus far, with the exception of that Turbo Dork kind of painting. And as you may be able to intuit, this was a lot of clockwork brass, which is just an amazing color. Again, I did some great work on the boning and teeth here. The eyes are on point. And the thing I am particularly proud of in this is my Verde Green of the brass. That nice little kind of green tinting was probably one of my first goes at dry brushing, and it came together really well. I think I made nice choices of where to place it, kind of logical, natural choices for where to place it, and I didn't overdo it, which was something really good. So that is another one of those guys. I really do love that guy. Have not found a chance to put him on a tabletop yet, but one day I will. I'm sure of it. Next, we're going to switch to a Dungeons and Lasers miniature from Archon Studios. This was a backer bonus, I believe, in the Woodhaven campaign. It would kind of have to be because that's the only one I got to pledge in. Hold on, there we go. This is Jerry the Jello. Jerry holds a fond place in my heart. One, because the name is just, it makes you want to love him. But also because this is a great miniature put together. Now, this is done in a transparent resin, and was fantastic. It was all this nice green color, and I colored in the rest of it. He's quite a character. Whether Jerry is the Jello or the poor knight on the front taking a ride is up for debate. This was probably, actually this is, I can say for a fact now, probably the most recent paint of this bunch. So this happened maybe a couple months ago. Really was my first working with speed paint metallics and a couple other speed paint things, and came together incredibly well. I'm happy with the way I was able to pick out the details. He has lost his poor hand again. That was the one problem with this miniature, is the two hands and the legs, very small, thin pieces at very finite attachment points. They come off so much during the assembly, the painting, everything. Um, I will have to see if I can find that hand somewhere, wherever it did manage to snap off. Otherwise, it's still going to be handless. It happens. You lose a hand sometimes. You know, that's how it goes. One of the things I do really appreciate about the work that I did with this miniature, outside of, I think it is some of my best work in layering and shading and those sorts of things, is in the assembly of this, there were a lot of gaps. And so you may not be able to tell just by looking at it, but there's a lot of what we in the miniature world call green stuff. I know on a miniature like this, that seems kind of redundant, but it's just an epoxy paste, sculpting paste that we mix together and then use to fill in gaps on miniatures. Because even with the best engineering by the companies and the best handed skills in assembling, occasionally you end up with places where pieces just don't want to align, whether it's for environmental factors, maybe something happened during sitting on a shelf or shipping, etc., who knows. And so you just put a little sculpting putty together and try and form that into the gaps. But it can be, depending on what colors you're going with, difficult to kind of blend in. And even if you do a good job painting it, sometimes it's hard to make that texture work, particularly when you're trying to do something nice and smooth with it. It's a little bit easier to work in when you're gonna already have some texture on the miniature there. And as you can see, Jerry has some nice smooth edges, particularly where this green stuff needed to go. So I'm very proud of the way I was kind of able to cover that. You know, if you don't know where it is and you don't take a particularly close look, you would probably miss it. In fact, you may still be missing it. Now, the last one. Also very proud of this. I don't know whether I do something different or not. It does need a couple touch-ups from transport. We haven't talked about it a lot on the channel, but I did, when I moved up to Maine, moved up with just my Toyota Camry, and thus had to take the essentials, which sadly did not include my massive miniature collection. So about a year ago, I want to say, I went down and I rescued them all. Not really rescued. They were in good hands in my mom's house, but I transported them, and I didn't do it the best way. Not the safest way, because I just wanted to get them up here, and I kind of accept that, generally speaking, things are going to happen to these minis. I mean, they live with me. I'm going to drop them. I'm going to knock them off things. Damages may happen, like with Jerry the Jello, or you may have also seen in the intro video, Mascar, the gentleman with the white skin and the tattooing and the axe is also missing an arm. These things happen. Cuts and scrapes happen, and I don't worry about it too much because to me that is real life, right? And if we're running a good tabletop where we're trying to kind of include all of those things that could happen and include the different shapes and forms in which people and other creatures show up, then a lost arm, some nicks, scratches, those sorts of things are relatable and includable. So I kind of do the old tech thing, whereas I look at it as a feature, not a bug. I don't get worked up about missing pieces or chipped paint and those sorts of things. So when I did move all of those miniatures, I may or may not have just kind of packed them all in a somewhat gentle way in a couple of checked luggage bags and flown them back up here with me when I went to visit my mom. Anyways, some of them obviously got some chipping. This lovely guy, Father Dagon, if you are familiar with Lovecraftian lore, not war, I mean, I guess kind of. Anyways, that will be a familiar name to you. This is again a Reaper miniature sculpt, which I love. I was excited to get him and really just kind of delve into, if you can see, all these nice intricate kind of carvings on these ruins. And then also just the body form here. I knew I wanted to go with a nice kind of cool color tone palette and bring it in. And the Reaper MSP colors had some great colors for that. This particular kind of spectral green here is one of my favorites. That is Ghost Fire Green from their Brine Wind paint selection. I should probably stock up on some more before it disappears because I love it and I use it for anything spooky related or indeed these kind of sea monster related items. So he's got a couple places where I need to do some touch-up work on his spines, those sorts of things. But other than that, I don't feel like I would make any changes to this miniature and the way I painted. He does need a good dusting, I will say. That is the unfortunate thing. These guys also lived out in the open. No, they don't. They're in a nice, safe, protective glass bookcase you can see behind me in videos. So, yeah, he came together really well. If I recall, it was a difficult kind of piece getting everything assembled in one spot. Particularly since I did do sub-assembly, and I think there may be some green stuff in some of these joints as well, because there was some gappage, which I did a really good job covering up, I must say myself. Hard for me to find now that I don't remember it was there. Oh, yeah, there's definitely some at the base of the tail, though. Anyways, this was also my first sub-assembly paint. Sub-assembly painting being something we will get into when we do more miniature painting, which is coming. That is, sometimes they're pieces of a miniature in assembly that, for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, strange of me to say. Anyways, they sort of impede each other and cover each other up, but you don't want to leave unpainted areas there. Like, you won't really be able to get there well with a paintbrush, or even at all with a paintbrush once the mini's fully assembled. So in order to get full coverage, because you will probably still be able to see those areas, or at least kind of gander at them a little bit, what you want to do is paint them separately and then put them back together. And that's what happened with Father Dagon, particularly in that tail. That tail is actually two side pieces that go on to the centerpiece, and then the centerpiece kind of plugs in to the base of the body there. So that needed to absolutely be sub-assembly, because as they bunch up and come together, it would just get too close to really do a nice clean job of painting underneath there. And yeah, that's my top 5 of my miniature paints. I would say I look forward to ousting them with the results you're going to see me do on this channel, but I also don't want to. They're kind of all my babies. Weird to say, but they really are. And I guess that's true of a large amount of miniatures for me, but not all of them. It is particularly true of the larger sculpts, as you may be able to tell, that 3 out of the 5 of these are chonkers. I do appreciate those, though I do also appreciate some of the fine details that are in the small guys. And we're going to see a ton of great sculpts coming together and being painted on this channel for the year ahead. There are some things I'm very excited about painting with, so maybe, in another 6 months or after we're done with this whole project, I'll need to revisit this topic, and we'll see if the top 5, if any of them get ousted or not. Maybe we'll do separate leagues. We'll have like a vintage league, the old folks league, and then we'll make a league for the new smart peppy guys, maybe. But I don't know. Anyways, there they are. Let me know in the comments what you think. Who's your favorite of the 5? And would you like to see more? Should I do the other 5 of a top 10? What do you want? I mean, there are plenty of options to look through on Instagram. I do have some other great ones. A few who will definitely be getting some touches up. I can think just off the top of my head. Reaper's King and Queen of Hell, which I have, could definitely use with a little more detail working. Maybe throw some more shading on those. So maybe we'll do that as a future video as well. Just take you through the process of adding layers on top of a already completed mini. But for today, that is all. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Until then, take care of yourself and be good to one another.